The crystalline spires of Earth's International Spaceport gleamed in the morning sunlight as Admiral Kefrix adjusted their ceremonial sash for the seventh time. The iridescent fabric, woven with achievements and battle honors, felt unusually heavy under Earth's gravity. Their assistant, Lieutenant Zex, noticed the subtle gesture. "Admiral, your sash is perfectly aligned," Zex whispered, their translucent antennae twitching with concern. "The humans likely won't notice even if it weren't." Frick's outer eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of mild annoyance among their species. "It's not about their perception, Lieutenant. It's about maintaining standards." The Admiral's inner eyes remained fixed on the approaching human delegation. The Zalaxian High Command had chosen Kefrix for this mission due to their extensive experience in military training. 30 cycles of commanding the Empire's most prestigious combat academy had earned them a reputation for identifying and developing tactical genius. Their mission seemed straightforward: study human military training methods and assess their capabilities. The human greeting party approached with what Kefrix's cultural briefing identified as warm smiles. Their translator implant worked flawlessly, converting the complex sound patterns of English into meaningful concepts. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral Kefrix," the lead human said, extending a hand. The Admiral had practiced this ritual, the handshake, extensively in preparation. They reached out with their primary manipulator, careful to maintain the recommended pressure for human comfort. "Your hospitality honors us," Kefrix responded, using their secondary voice chamber to approximate human speech patterns. "We look forward to learning about your training methodologies." The first surprise came during the ground transport journey from the spaceport. Instead of heading toward a military installation, their vehicle merged into streams of civilian traffic, weaving between structures that housed what humans called businesses and shops. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Kefrix said, their crystalline skin shifting to a concerned azure hue. "We were scheduled to observe your military training facilities." The human escort, Colonel Chen, smiled. "We'll get there, Admiral. But first, we thought you might appreciate seeing how our civilian population spends their free time. Understanding our culture is key to understanding our military approach." Frick's outer eyes tracked the passing scenery while their inner ones studied the datapad containing their mission briefing. Nothing in their intelligence suggested that civilian recreation centers held military significance. Yet the humans seemed insistent on this detour. The transport stopped before a massive structure that the humans called a mall. The architecture was puzzling. Open spaces filled with smaller establishments, each broadcasting different colors, sounds, and scents. Crowds of humans moved in seemingly random patterns, many of them carrying packages or consuming food while walking, a concept that would horrify any proper Zalaxian. But what caught Kefrix's attention was a particular section of the facility. The sounds emanating from it were a chaotic mixture of simulated explosions, electronic music, and human vocalizations expressing excitement. The sign above read "Stellar Arcade, where dreams take flight." "This," Colonel Chen announced with evident pride, "is where many of our young people spend their leisure time." Crick's translator struggled with the concept of leisure, eventually settling on non-productive recreational activities. The Admiral's skin rippled with skepticism. They had reviewed human military history extensively. A species that had mastered faster-than-light travel in mere centuries couldn't have achieved such advancement by wasting time on non-productive activities. As they entered the arcade, the cacophony of sounds and lights intensified. Young humans gathered around various electronic devices, their fingers moving with surprising precision across control interfaces. Kefrix's tactical training automatically began analyzing movement patterns, reaction times, and coordination levels. Then they saw something that made all four of their eyes widen simultaneously. In the corner, surrounded by a small crowd of observers, a young human was operating what appeared to be a full-scale Starship command simulator. The holographic displays showed multiple fleet formations, power distribution graphs, and tactical overlays that looked eerily familiar. Frick's skin shifted to the deep purple of intense focus. Perhaps this leisure activity warranted closer investigation after all. Sarah Chen's fingers danced across the holographic control panel of Stellar Command IUI with practiced precision. The game's newest scenario, the Hammerhead Nebula Crisis, had stumped most players, but her dark eyes sparkled with determination as she coordinated her fleet's movements. Admiral Kithriks moved closer, their crystalline form reflecting the arcade's neon lights. Lieutenant Zex followed, datapad ready to record observations. The growing crowd of young humans barely noticed the alien observers, their attention fixed on Sarah's tactical display. "She's going to try the nebula scatter," one boy whispered excitedly. "Nobody's pulled that off yet." Frick's translator processed the terminology, correlating it with known space combat maneuvers. The scenario displayed a massive purple nebula, its radiation interfering with sensors and shield systems. The hostile fleet, marked in red, had positioned themselves in a standard Pincer 7 formation, theoretically blocking all escape routes. Sarah's hands moved in a blur. Her fleet split into 3 groups, each taking positions that seemed random at first glance. Kefrik's outer eyes widened as they recognized the pattern. It was a variation of the legendary Tri-Sector Defense, a maneuver that had won the Battle of Proxima Centauri for the Andromedan fleet. "Power distribution to forward shields," Sarah muttered, more to herself than her audience. "Reroute tertiary systems to sensor arrays. Adjust for nebula interference." Her fingers swept across the power management screen, making dozens of micro-adjustments that Kithriks recognized from their own command training. Lieutenant Zex's antenna twitched violently. "Admiral, these power distribution patterns, they're nearly identical to—" "I see it," Kithriks interrupted softly, their skin shifting to deep purple with concentration. The young human was unconsciously replicating advanced combat techniques that took most species years to master. The hostile fleet moved in, their formation perfect by any tactical standard. Sarah smiled. She had been waiting for this moment. With a series of quick commands, her 3 fleet groups executed synchronized microjumps. The maneuver used the nebula's radiation patterns to mask their signatures, making it appear as if her ships had vanished. "That's impossible," Zex whispered. "The radiation interference patterns would prevent coordinated." The lieutenant's objection died as Sarah's fleet reappeared at precisely calculated points around the enemy formation. The hostile fleet's tight formation, normally a strength, became a weakness. Caught in their own crossfire and confused by the nebula's effects, the red ships began to disappear from the tactical display. "High score," the game announced, its cheerful tone almost comical given the tactical brilliance just displayed. Sarah's audience erupted in cheers, but she was already analyzing the replay, muttering about improving the timing on the third group's emergence pattern. Frick's inner eyes focused on the power distribution graphs while their outer eyes studied Sarah's casual demeanor. She had just executed a maneuver that combined advanced spatial mathematics, quantum sensor theory, and multi-vector combat tactics. Yet she treated it as nothing more than an entertaining puzzle. That was amazing. A younger girl approached Sarah. "But don't you have math homework to finish?" Sarah laughed, standing up from the simulator. "This is math homework. Mom says if I can calculate jump vectors in my head, regular algebra should be easy." She gathered her backpack, then paused at the simulator's control panel. "Oh, and the nebula's radiation decay rate is off by about 3%. It made the scatter maneuver easier than it should be." As Sarah walked away, discussing snack options with her friends, Kefrix's skin rippled with multiple colors, a sign of intense emotional processing among their species. Lieutenant Zex finally found their voice. "Admiral, she just identified an error in the game's quantum physics calculations while planning her afternoon snack." Crick's 4 eyes followed Sarah's retreating form. "Lieutenant, revise our mission parameters. We need to know everything about these games." The next morning found Admiral Crick back at the arcade, their crystalline form carefully positioned to avoid drawing attention. Lieutenant Zex had configured their advanced neural scanning equipment to appear as simple decorative jewelry, a necessity for their covert observation. Beginning deep scan of neural patterns, Zex whispered, adjusting the settings on their disguised equipment. The readings from the young human at the simulator began flowing across their specialized viewing screen. Sarah had returned, this time tackling what the game called the Siege of Epsilon. The scenario presented a seemingly impossible challenge, defending a space station against waves of attackers while managing diminishing resources and a damaged reactor core. Kfrix's inner eyes narrowed as the neural readings appeared. "This can't be correct," they muttered, their skin flickering with patches of confused yellow. "Run the scan again." But the second scan showed the same results. The young human's neural patterns displayed activity across multiple cognitive domains simultaneously. She was calculating power distribution ratios, plotting tactical trajectories, managing resource allocation, and maintaining strategic awareness of 47 different combat units, all while explaining the game's mechanics to a younger player beside her. "Look," Sarah pointed to a particular readout on the screen, her fingers never stopping their dance across the controls. "You always want to keep your reactor containment fields at 93%. That gives you the best balance between power output and safety margins." Crick's translator nearly stuttered. The number wasn't arbitrary. It was the exact optimal ratio that Zalaxian engineers had calculated for their own battle cruisers after centuries of research. "Watch this part," Sarah continued, her attention split between teaching and playing. "When the third wave comes in, they'll try to flank the station's weak side. But if you've been collecting debris from the first two waves," her fingers flew across the resource management screen, rapidly organizing salvage operations even as she coordinated defensive fire. The neural scan showed her brain processing these complex tasks with the same effort most humans use to walk or breathe. She had developed neural pathways specifically optimized for four-dimensional spatial reasoning and resource management under pressure. "Admiral." Zek's antennae trembled slightly. "I've completed the comparative analysis. Her neural efficiency ratings for space combat scenarios exceed those of our veteran commanders. She's processing tactical data faster than our most advanced combat computers." Frick's outer eyes blinked in sequence as they absorbed this information, and she believes this is merely entertainment. Their question was answered as Sarah executed a perfect defensive maneuver, using the space station's damaged reactor core to create a controlled energy pulse that disrupted the enemy fleet's formation. "Yes," she exclaimed, high-fiving her friend. "Now we can go get ice cream." The Admiral's skin shifted through several shades of blue as they processed the implications. They had assumed humanity's rapid advancement in space warfare came from some secret training program or genetic modification. The truth was far more extraordinary. "Lieutenant," Kefrick's voice carried the weight of revelation. "They've turned warfare into a game. Not just any game, one their children love to play. One they willingly spend hours mastering, comparing strategies, teaching each other." A new group of children gathered around the simulator as Sarah prepared to leave. They immediately began discussing different approaches to the scenario, debating the merits of various tactical choices. Their conversation casually referenced concepts that were classified at the highest levels in most civilizations. "Send a priority message to High Command," Kefrix ordered, their skin settling into the deep purple of serious contemplation. Subject: immediate review required. Message: human military capabilities severely underestimated. They are not training warriors. The Admiral paused, watching Sarah share advanced tactical advice while planning her ice cream flavors. They are raising them. Late into Earth's night cycle, Admiral Kefrix sat in their temporary quarters, surrounded by holographic displays of the arcade game's code. Lieutenant Zex had managed to obtain a copy of the source files through official channels. The humans had simply handed it over, calling it a demo version for educational purposes. "Impossible," Kefrix muttered, their crystalline form glowing faintly in the darkness as they examine line after line of the game's physics engine. Run the comparison again. Zek's antennae twitched as they input the commands. Fourth verification complete, Admiral. The results remain consistent. The game's physics engine matches our most advanced combat simulators with 99.9% accuracy. The Admiral's outer eyes tracked the scrolling data while their inner eyes focused on a secondary display showing footage from the arcade. On screen, Sarah was explaining shield harmonics to a group of younger players, using terms that should have been classified in most advanced civilizations. Look at these trajectory calculations. HFY highlighted a section of code. The game isn't simplifying space combat. It's modeling it with near-perfect accuracy. The gravity wells, radiation effects, shield dynamics. Their skin rippled with shades of deep purple. Even the reactor core simulations match real quantum fluctuation patterns. The holographic displays shifted to show player statistics. Thousands of young humans regularly achieved scores that would qualify them for command positions in most spacefaring navies. They were mastering concepts like quantum shield harmonics and four-dimensional combat maneuvers while competing for high scores. There's more, Admiral. Zex brought up another data set. The scenarios in the game, they're not random. I've cross-referenced them with historical battles from across known space. HFY's skin paled to a lighter shade as they recognized the patterns. The Hammerhead Nebula crisis was a barely disguised version of the infamous Battle of Sector 7. The Siege of Epsilon closely mirrored the month-long defense of the Proxima Centauri colonies. They've taken real military encounters. The Admiral's voice carried a note of awe and turned them into entertainment. These children aren't just playing a game. They're rehearsing actual space combat scenarios that shaped galactic history. A new alert flashed across their screens. The game's online servers were showing peak activity. Millions of young humans simultaneously engaged in simulated space warfare. They were coordinating fleet movements, managing resources, and developing tactical innovations that would make veteran commanders envious. Admiral, Zek's voice wavered slightly. I've completed the analysis of their achievement system. The lieutenant brought up a detailed breakdown of the game's reward mechanics. Players earned badges and trophies for mastering increasingly complex combat techniques. The requirements for some of these achievements. HFY finished the thought, their skin now pulsing with patterns of realization. They match our military qualification standards. These achievements are equivalent to our combat certification tests. The Admiral rose, their crystalline form catching the light from the holographic displays. They moved to the window, gazing out at the sleeping human city. Somewhere out there, young humans were dreaming about their next gaming session, eager to tackle new challenges and master more complex scenarios. The implications are staggering, HFY spoke softly. Every human with access to these games is receiving sophisticated combat training. They're not just learning the principles, they're internalizing them, developing intuitive understanding through repetition and enjoyment. Zex analyzed the player statistics again. According to these numbers, the average player spends over 300 hours mastering basic space combat before moving to advanced scenarios. They're accumulating more practical combat experience than our officer candidates. While having fun, HFY completed the statement, their skin settling into a deep, thoughtful blue. That's what makes it brilliant. They've removed the barrier between training and entertainment. Their children don't practice combat because they must. They do it because they want to. The next 2 days found Admiral HFY visiting every arcade within the city limits. Lieutenant Zex struggled to keep pace, their datapad nearly overflowing with observations and analysis. Each location revealed the same pattern. Young humans casually mastering complex space warfare concepts through what they called gaming. At the 7th arcade, they watched a pair of siblings coordinating a complex fleet maneuver. The older brother, barely 10 Earth years old, managed power distribution while his 8-year-old sister handled tactical positioning. Their synchronized movements would have impressed veteran fleet commanders. Did you see that slingshot maneuver? The boy high-fived his sister. The gravity calculations were perfect. Frick's translator captured their casual conversation about gravitational physics that would challenge graduate students on most worlds. The children discussed complex theoretical concepts as if they were discussing simple playground games. In another corner, a teenager demonstrated what players called the dolphin dive, a complex maneuver involving precise timing of shield fluctuations to survive passage through an asteroid field. The Admiral's skin shifted to pale blue as they recognized the technique. The Zalaxian Navy had classified similar research as top secret. Lieutenant, Kithriks gestured toward their neural scanning equipment. Compare these readings with our previous data. Zek's antennae twitched as they analyzed the results. Consistent patterns, Admiral. All subjects show enhanced neural pathways for spatial reasoning and combat tactics. The development appears to begin as early as age 6 in regular players. The Admiral moved through the arcade, their outer eyes tracking various game screens while their inner eyes studied the players themselves. A young girl perfectly executed a quantum torpedo spread that would have earned her instant promotion in most space navies. A boy calculated jump coordinates in his head while explaining homework to a friend. It's not just the simulator, Kithriks realized, that are skin rippling with epiphany. Look at the other games. They were right. What appeared to be simple entertainment devices all contained elements of combat training. A dance game taught timing and coordination. A puzzle game developed resource management skills. Even a racing game incorporated complex physics that prepared young minds for understanding spatial mechanics. The entire arcade is a training facility. Zex whispered, their antennae curling in astonishment. Every game builds specific skills needed for space warfare. Trix approached a new machine where a young player was attempting what the game called the ultimate challenge. The scenario involved defending a solar system against overwhelming odds. The Admiral's skin paled as they recognized the tactical situation. It was nearly identical to a classified training simulation used to evaluate fleet admirals. The young human failed the scenario but immediately started again, grinning with determination. I almost had it that time. Just need to adjust my resource allocation in the first phase. They don't get discouraged by failure, Kithriks observed, their voice carrying a note of wonder. They treat it as entertainment. Lieutenant Zex completed another scan. Admiral, I've compiled the statistical analysis, based on arcade attendance records and global gaming data. The lieutenant's antennae trembled. Approximately 60% of human youth regularly engage in some form of combat simulation gaming. Frick's skin cycled through shades of purple as they processed the implications. They've created a voluntary training program that operates on a planetary scale. No drills, no forced participation. Their observation was interrupted by excited shouts from across the arcade. A group of children had linked their games together for what they called a raid party. The Admiral watched in amazement as the young humans coordinated complex fleet movements with the casual ease of ordering snacks. Lieutenant, Kithriks' voice carried the weight of revelation. Revise our species' threat assessment protocols. Any civilization that can turn warfare training into a form of mass entertainment. They paused, watching the children celebrate a perfectly executed battle plan. Is either brilliant or terrifying. Possibly both. Admiral Kithriks spent 3 duty cycles preparing the test. Their quarters had been transformed into a makeshift command center. Holographic displays showing complex military simulations alongside arcade game footage. Lieutenant Zex had expressed concern about protocol violations, but the Admiral's outer eyes hadn't blinked in hours, a sign of unwavering determination in their species. The modifications are complete, Zex reported, their antennae twitching nervously. Though I must note that using actual Zalaxian combat simulations for this purpose is highly irregular. These are extraordinary circumstances. Kithriks responded, their skin shimmering with purpose. We need empirical data. They studied the modified program one final time. The simulator contained actual tactical scenarios used to train Zalaxian fleet commanders, disguised with simple graphic overlays to appear as a new arcade game. The next morning, they installed the prototype game in the arcade. The cabinet looked identical to others, bearing only the title Stellar Command, Frontier Challenge. Within minutes, young humans gathered around, attracted by the novelty. Sarah was among them, her eyes lighting up at the new challenge. The interface looks different, she observed, sliding into the pilot's seat, almost like it's designed for non-human controllers. Frick's inner eyes widened. She had instantly noticed the subtle differences in the Zalaxian control scheme, despite their attempts to mask it. The Admiral's skin flickered with anticipation as she started the first scenario. The simulation began with what the Zalaxian Navy considered a basic tactical challenge, coordinating a defense of multiple targets with limited resources. Sarah's fingers danced across the controls, quickly adapting to the alien interface. The power distribution curves are interesting, she commented, making rapid adjustments. They follow a logarithmic progression instead of the usual exponential model. She was casually describing classified engineering principles while solving the scenario faster than most Zalaxian cadets. Lieutenant Zek's datapad trembled in their grasp. Admiral, she's already exceeded the optimal completion time for Level 1 by 30%. More young humans gathered, taking turns with the new game. Each player approached the scenarios differently, finding solutions that hadn't occurred to the simulation's designers. They called out suggestions, shared theories, and celebrated each other's achievements, turning military training into a collaborative social activity. The physics engine feels different, one boy noted, executing a complex maneuver. You have to account for higher relativistic effects in the turning calculations. Frick's skin paled. The humans weren't just solving the scenarios. They were reverse engineering the fundamental principles of Zalaxian space combat doctrine through casual observation and experimentation. Sarah returned for another attempt, having spent time watching others play. Her neural patterns showed remarkable adaptation to the alien control scheme. She started the highest level scenario, one that even experienced commanders approach with caution. The enemy formation has a weird blind spot, she announced, plotting an unconventional approach vector. If you modulate shield frequencies to match their sensor sweep pattern, her fingers flew across the controls, implementing a strategy that made both Fricks and Zex freeze in astonishment. She had discovered a fundamental flaw in standard Zalaxian battle formations, one that their own tactical analysts had missed for decades, and she found it while sipping a carbonated beverage through a curved plastic tube. Admiral, Zex whispered, their antennae curling tightly. She just invalidated 3 centuries of tactical doctrine in less than 15 minutes. Fricks watched as Sarah completed the scenario with a score that would have earned her immediate admission to the Imperial War College. She stood up, stretching casually. That was fun. The controls take some getting used to, but the scenarios are really interesting. Though that last formation had some weird vulnerabilities. The Admiral's skin cycled through shades of deep purple and blue. Lieutenant, they said softly, prepare a priority transmission to High Command. Classification level. Ultimate. The subject line, Admiral. Frick's 4 eyes remained fixed on the young humans, eagerly discussing tactics that could reshape galactic warfare. Simple, Lieutenant. Subject. Everything we know is wrong. The High Command's response arrived faster than any transmission in Kithrick's long career. Their quarters' holographic displays flickered with urgent priority markers as the encrypted message materialized. Lieutenant Zex's antennae curled tightly, a sign of extreme anxiety in their species. They've convened an emergency session of the Strategic Council. Kithrick's noted, their skin shifting to pale blue as they absorbed the magnitude of the response. The entire Admiralty is present. The central hologram expanded, revealing the crystalline forms of 12 Zalaxian fleet admirals. Their combined achievements in space combat had shaped galactic warfare doctrine for centuries. Now, they sat in stunned silence as they reviewed Kithrick's data on human gaming. These readings cannot be accurate. Admiral Vexthor, the most decorated commander in the fleet, finally spoke. You suggest that human children are mastering advanced combat principles through entertainment. Kithrick's outer eyes blinked in sequence as they initiated the data playback. The council watched footage from multiple arcades, showing young humans casually solving tactical challenges that had stumped veteran commanders. The evidence is conclusive, Kithrick's reported, their skin rippling with conviction. They've created a training system so effective that their youth instinctively understand concepts our finest academies struggle to teach. The tactical analysis continued, showing neural scans, game code breakdowns, and player performance metrics. Each new piece of data caused the council members' crystalline forms to shift through various shades of disbelief and concern. Most concerning is their approach to failure, Lieutenant Zex added, their voice steady despite their trembling antennae. When human players fail a scenario, they immediately retry with new strategies. They call it getting better scores. This iterative learning process creates perfect training conditions, another council member finished, their form darkening with realization. They fail without consequences, learn from each attempt, and share knowledge freely. It's brilliantly simple. The footage showed groups of children gathering around screens, pointing out tactical opportunities, sharing techniques, and celebrating each other's achievements. They were unknowingly building a vast database of combat expertise distributed through what they called gaming communities. The implications extend beyond tactical training, Kithrick continued, bringing up new data streams. Their gaming industry releases new titles constantly. Each game introduces different aspects of space warfare: resource management, fleet coordination, emergency response scenarios. The council watched as footage showed humans of various ages engaged in different games. A teenage girl mastering power distribution systems, a young boy calculating jump coordinates, a group of friends coordinating complex fleet maneuvers while sharing snacks. They're not just training pilots or commanders. Admiral Vexthor's voice carried a note of awe. They're preparing their entire population for space warfare. Every role, every specialty. Kithrick's skin pulsed with deep purple emphasis. And they're doing it voluntarily. Their youth spend countless hours perfecting these skills, competing for high scores, sharing strategies across global networks. The council chamber fell silent as the final analysis appeared, a projection of human space combat capabilities based on their gaming population. The numbers were staggering. Millions of potential commanders, billions of trained support personnel, all honing their skills daily through entertainment. This changes everything. One council member finally spoke. Our entire assessment of human military potential must be revised. Their children play games more sophisticated than our combat simulators. Admiral Vexthor's crystalline form shifted to the deep blue of serious contemplation. The question becomes, did they design their games this way intentionally, or did they unknowingly create the perfect training system? Frix's four eyes focused on the latest arcade footage, showing young humans eagerly gathering around the modified Zalaxian simulator. In the end, Admiral, does it matter? Intention or accident, the result is the same. They're building an army. Their voice trailed off as they watched a group of children solve a tactical scenario that had baffled Zalaxian strategists for generations. The kids were already discussing ways to improve the solution, treating galaxy-shaking military innovations as a fun puzzle to be solved. 10 years passed in what felt like a single duty cycle to Admiral Kithrick. Their crystalline form had gained new patterns, marks of honor from the Zalaxian High Command for their groundbreaking research into human military capabilities. Lieutenant Zex, now a commander, stood beside them in Earth's unified Space Academy graduation hall. The changes you recommended to our treaties with Earth were most prescient, Admiral, Zex observed, their antennae swaying gently. The humans proved to be far more valuable as allies than potential adversaries. Frick's outer eyes tracked the graduates filing into their seats while their inner eyes studied the ceremony program. Indeed, though I suspect few understood why I insisted on those specific terms regarding technological exchange and joint training programs. Their attention focused on one particular graduate. The young woman's uniform bore the highest academic honors the Academy offered. Her tactical scores had broken records previously thought unbreakable. The name on the program brought a ripple of deep blue satisfaction to Kethrix's skin. Senior Cadet Sarah Chen. She continued gaming, Zex commented, reviewing data on their pad. Even during her academy training, said it helped her relax. Their antennae twitched with amusement. Her latest simulator scores are remarkable. The graduation ceremony proceeded with typical human flair, speeches about duty, honor, and the future of space exploration. Kethrix, the translator, caught phrases that would have seemed impossible a decade ago: joint fleet operations, integrated command structures, harmonized combat doctrine. Then came the moment they had been waiting for. Sarah stepped up to deliver the valedictorian address. Her voice carried the same casual confidence she had shown in the arcade years ago. Distinguished faculty, honored guests, fellow graduates, she began, her eyes scanning the audience. Many of you have asked how I developed my tactical thinking. The truth is, it started in an unlikely place, an arcade in a shopping mall. Kethrix's skin rippled with appreciation as Sarah continued. What we thought were games were actually teaching us fundamental principles of space combat, fleet management, and tactical innovation. Every high score we chased, every strategy we developed, every failure we learned from, it was all preparation for this moment. The Admiral's inner eyes noticed something fascinating. Throughout the audience, other graduates were nodding, sharing knowing looks. They too had grown up in arcades, mastering complex military concepts while having fun with friends. Today, as we join the combined fleets, Sarah continued, we bring with us not just our formal training, but years of practical experience in problem solving, tactical thinking, and adaptation. Our allies might be surprised to learn that some of our most innovative combat maneuvers were first developed by 12-year-olds trying to beat the newest game release. A ripple of laughter moved through the audience, but Kethrix noticed the Zalaxian officers present shifted to deeper shades of purple. They understood the profound truth in her words. The greatest gift our society gave us wasn't just education or training, Sarah concluded, but the ability to face complex challenges with enthusiasm, to learn from failure without fear, and to always believe that every problem has a solution. You just have to find the right way to play the game. As applause filled the hall, Kethrix's skin settled into the deep blue of contentment. Their most recent report to High Command had been simple: human integration into joint fleet operations exceeding all projections. Their gaming-based training methodology now being adapted for our own use. Recommendation: increase funding for development of entertainment training systems. Commander Zex's antennae curled with curiosity. Admiral, I've always wondered, did you ever try the games yourself? Kethrix's four eyes crinkled, and what they had learned was the human expression of amusement. Of course, Commander. My high score still stands on level 7 of Stellar Command II. After all, they added, watching Sarah receive her commission, one should always understand the games people play.